Hello, I'm Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and this is the Constitution segment recap for Season 2, Episode 22 of Restore Freedom Weekly. This is just the simple Constitution recap, so to catch that full lively discussion, make sure to check out that full episode, the link for which is on slide 2 of this presentation. This week we talked about what a constitutional sheriff is, and we had a live unscripted interview with sheriff candidate Dean Brandt. We talked about, well, whether your sheriff is constitutional, what should a sheriff know about the Constitution, why is your sheriff important to your freedom, and asked you to join us for this live unscripted interview with sheriff candidate Dean Brandt as we answered these questions and quizzed him on the Constitution, general aspects of government, and his candidacy. Now, we didn't have a lot of time to cover a lot of those aspects, so just focusing on the Constitution segments that we quizzed him on, that's what we're going to talk about in today's Constitution segment recap. Now, the first thing we quizzed him on during the episode on Tuesday was our Tuesday true or false question of the day. Our U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, guarantees us a democratic form of government. And you could check out the video for how he answered that. But getting on into what should a sheriff know about the Constitution? Everything in this video, really everything that was in the full video from Tuesday would be the things that I would think would be bare minimum for what a sheriff or sheriff candidate should know about the Constitution. Quite frankly, that all government officials, that we all as the people should know about the Constitution. But anyway, to start us off, I then asked him, who created our Constitution and our very form of government? That answer, of course, being we, the people, created our Constitution and our very form of government. I asked him, where do our rights come from? That answer, of course, is they come from God, not the government. So what rights does the government have? That answer, of course, is that the government has no rights. And then I asked him, what does Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution say? Well, that's the one that guarantees us not a democratic form of government, but a republican form of government, where we elect representatives, but we, the people, retain the ultimate control and authority. And what here is the supreme law of the land? It is the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution serves over and above even the state constitutions. I then asked him, what must every government official and employee do, and where in the Constitution is it required? He got at least the first part of this right, and just not the citations, but all government officials are required to take the constitutional oath. And where it's required in the Constitution, it depends on if you're looking at the state or U.S. Constitution, but start with U.S. Constitution, Article 6. So I asked him a series of true or false questions, but just to give you a sampling, laws are not just made by statutes or procedures found in state constitutions. All executive orders, case law, and administrative rules are laws too, true or false. That answer is a big false, false, false. Only the legislative branch, not the executive branch or judicial branch, can make laws. So resolutions. Resolutions are the same as laws. At a local level, the people can be regulated by resolutions. True or false? That also is false. People cannot be regulated by resolutions, but rather ordinances, which are local versions of state statutes or federal laws. True or false? The right to ballot access is strongly protected by the Constitution and involves your rights to free speech, peaceful assembly, petitioning the government for redress of grievances, equal protection, due process, and more. Well, that answer is true. The right to ballot access is strongly protected by the Constitution. While we might not always agree with administrative agencies like the CDC, the EPA, etc., they have an important job to do. True or false? False. Administrative agencies are entirely unconstitutional and serve no legitimate constitutional purpose whatsoever. Municipal government bodies are bound to follow the U.S. and state constitutions. They cannot enforce regulations that violate the God-given rights of the people. True or false? Local governments have inherent authority and are not bound by the constitutions. The answer is true. Local governments must follow the U.S. and state constitutions and cannot violate the God-given rights of the people. Just like the U.S. and state constitutions, counties also have governing charters often voted into place by the people. County governments must follow these charters as well as the state and U.S. constitutions. True. We must follow an unconstitutional court order until a higher court overturns it. False. And in general, government meetings must be held in a manner open to the public. True. When there's an unknown threat, the government must be given additional powers to address the emergency. That's an absolutely false, false, false. And you can look to the United States Supreme Court that understood that even as far back as 1934, saying that the government's grants of power, the Constitution's grants of power to the federal government and its limitations of the power of the states were determined in light of emergency, and they are not altered by emergency. Emergency does not create more power. Then we quizzed him on the amendments, not all of them, but the ones that I think would be the most important to remember. What does the First Amendment do? Well, it prohibits the government from establishing a religion, prohibits the government from stopping our free exercise of religion, abridging the freedom of press, the freedom of speech, abridging the right of the people to peaceably assemble or to petition their government for a redress of grievances. The Second Amendment, of course, is that with the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I then asked about the Fourth Amendment in probably a slightly unique way, but what protection and what requirement are found in the Fourth Amendment? And that is, the protection is that the right of the people to be secure against unreasonable searches and seizures, and the requirement is that warrants must have probable cause, be supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describe the things that are going to be searched or seized. What protections are found in the Fifth Amendment? Well, that there's no trial, not even punishment, no trial for capital offenses without first a grand jury indictment, that there's no double jeopardy, that there's a right against self-incrimination, that there's no deprivation of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and that private property may only be taken for public use and for just compensation. What are the protections found in the Sixth Amendment? A speedy and public trial, an impartial jury of the state and district where the crime happened, that you have the right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, be confronted with the witnesses against you, obtain compulsory process for having witnesses come to court and testify on your behalf, even if they're uncooperative, and have the assistance of counsel for your defense. The three topics covered in the Eighth Amendment, Dean got this, and none of the other supporters, viewers, or commenters on Tuesday were able to do this, and that would be bail, fines, and punishments. Excessive bail should not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. What rights are protected by the Ninth Amendment? And the answer to this is actually something that's not in here verbatim, because the answer is the unenumerated rights. The unenumerated rights are what are protected by the Ninth Amendment. What rights are protected by the 10th Amendment? None. None are protected by the 10th Amendment because it's all about powers. Powers delegated to the federal or state governments or reserved to the people. And the three main protections within the 14th Amendment: that no state shall make or enforce any laws which abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and that they cannot deny to any person equal protection of the laws. We squeezed a whole lot down in these 10 minutes that we talked about in over 2 hours and 10 minutes on Tuesday, so make sure to watch that full episode on Tuesday for more information. Check out that Wednesday Way to Get Involved challenge that we shared with you yesterday. It's a very important one this week. And of course, check out our freedom fighting tools tomorrow on Friday. Remember, we're off next week, so join us again for all of these episodes and segments. Not next week, but the week after. And happy 4th of July. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and share Restore Freedom.